Hi, Courtney. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm super excited to be able to share your story. So, to start, I would love if you could just share a little bit about yourself and where you were before you joined the Cradle Coach Academy.
Yeah, so my name is Courtney Foley. I'm from Indianapolis-ish area, and I have been a teacher for the last 7 years. I am married, and we just had our first baby in September, a little girl named Emmy. And my story to sleep consulting kind of started when I had Emmy. I was like a passionate teacher that I thought that I would do this till I was old and gray, that they would have to drag me out of the classroom. When I graduated college, loved teaching. And slowly but surely, that fire kind of started dwindling. When you're in college and you think you can change the world and you're going to have this giant impact and they're going to write books about you. And then you're in it and you're like, oh, like this isn't all the stars and rainbows and everything that I dreamed that it would be. But I kind of was a silent sufferer for a long time. Like on the outside, it was like this bubbly teacher that all the parents, wanted their kid to have. And I was winning awards and all these things. But on the inside, I was like starting to feel stuck because with teaching, there's not a whole lot, or you think there's not a whole lot of avenues to like broaden your degree. Like you become a teacher to teach kids, and there's not like a lot of avenues that you can like reuse an elementary education degree, or so I thought. So I was just starting to have this like I feel stuck feeling. And then fast forward to having my daughter, the second I saw her face, I was like, I'm done. I cannot go back. There is absolutely no way that I can do this. But we were mid-year, and I was like, all right, I have to finish out the year. So when I went back on maternity leave, it was like my whole world was flipped upside down. Like I genuinely felt like someone was ripping my limbs off, giving this tiny 12-week-old baby over to a stranger to take care of while I sat in a classroom that I didn't want to be in, taking care of someone else's child. I'm paying half of my salary to be away from my baby, and it just further confirmed this stirring that I was having that I was done.
Yeah. Yeah. I can so relate to so much that you just shared. And I hear that so commonly from other teachers and from, other women who are working in corporate and doing things that they aren't passionate about already. And then you have that baby and it's like, it just is like, I now don't have an option. I could
Yeah.
suffer silently before, right? And it was
Mm-hmm.
okay. I could get through it. But now I have this child that I just cannot continue to live that life anymore. So it's so relatable and totally understand what you were going through. So, with teaching, obviously, you got into it because you loved it. You got into it because you were thinking that, like you said, this is what you were going to do with your life. So, even once you had that realization that this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be, and then you had your daughter and realized, I really can't keep doing this, what did you still love about teaching? What were the things that you were still like, "Oh, I'm going to miss this part of this?"
Yeah. So teachers usually don't become teachers for the money and the fame, right? We all are so impact driven. Of our hearts like bleed for children and wanting to make an impact. And that was what I was so scared of walking away from. The money's nothing. My money is hardly anything in our families, financial makeup. But I wanted to feel purpose aside from my role as a mother, of still knowing that there is somebody out there that when they walk across the stage on graduation or they're at their wedding day, they can reflect on the people who made them who they are and they think of me. That is just a really special feeling. So that is something that I was desperately searching for. Once I kind of had that realization, my husband and I, like, when we first had her before I discovered this program, I was like, eventually I'll stay home, like let my husband climb the corporate ladder a little bit so that he can kind of make up for what I make. And eventually, maybe on the next baby, I'll be able to stay home. And then I had her and I was like, I can't wait. There's no way that I can be like, okay, I'm going to have the whole childhood of my next baby, but not your whole childhood. Like I felt like I was compromising her childhood by her not having all of me, because by the time I would get home from work, I was drained. Like I was half of myself. I was so overstimulated. I was snippy with my husband, like I just was on edge. And I remember like driving home and racing the clock, knowing her wake window is ending. If I don't get home before she goes down for a nap, I'm hardly going to see her. Like I would get, when she was younger and her wake windows were an hour and a half, I would get an hour and a half with her in the whole day. Like I just was like, this isn't sustainable. I need to find something now that I can use my skills that I already have to help me be able to have some kind of income to be able to do this. And so I remember, I was asking ChatGPT everything. What can teachers do? What can teachers do? And it was like tutoring. And I'm like, I don't really want to tutor. Like work at a daycare. I'm like, I don't want to work at a daycare. I want to be home. Like, what can I do that is less work and more money? And I thought I was looking for a unicorn, and I ended up finding it. I remember contacting the woman who did my makeup for my wedding, and I was like, so what is it like to be a makeup artist? Like, can I just work on Saturdays, like all day Saturday doing makeup? And I'm like, I don't know how to do makeup, but so I just was like searching for anything. And simultaneously, we had just sleep trained our daughter. I read a bunch of books and totally geeked out on the science of sleep. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, it's literal magic. But I still had no idea that sleep consulting existed until one of my friends who was struggling with their child's sleep was like, I'm about to pay like $700 for this woman to help my daughter sleep through the night. She was 2 years old and had never slept through the night. And I was like, I'm sorry, did you just say $700 to help your child sleep through the night? Like, I know how to do that. Or, I knew the basics of it. She was like, yeah, we're going to hire a sleep consultant. And I was like, it's like this light bulb went off. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I was researching all the different programs and comparing everything. And I found Cradle Coach, and I was, I didn't really know a whole lot about a lot of the big programs out there. And I was getting canned emails from all these threads. And then you sent me a text, and I knew that it was a real actual text that you typed, because you mentioned something of like, this weekend I'm doing something with my kids, like, let's schedule this. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, this is a real person texting me about this. And I literally had my credit card information in another program, and I bailed on them, and I signed up for Cradle Coach because I was like, if this is like a personal, real connection, like nowadays with technology, like we're starting to lose that. And I was like, I want somewhere where I feel seen and known, and it's not me just like putting myself through a program and no one really knows I'm here. So I signed up, or I was close to signing up. I was like totally on board. I was like, I'm going to be a sleep consultant. And my husband was like, you're going to be a what? Like, what are we spending this money on? Like, is this just like a scam? Like, he had to get on board. And so you set me up with Michelle, who had just left the classroom. And him and I sat down together, and I had him prepare a whole list of questions for her, because I wanted to make this decision together. And he like berated her and asked her anything and everything there was about Cradle Coach Academy and about life as a sleep consultant and about leaving the classroom and all the things. And we signed off of that Zoom or whatever. And he was like, book it. Let's do it. Let's run it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so wild. Of like, I thought my entire life, like, this is what my life would be. And I was like, the weight that I had off of my chest signing up, like, I wish I could give to every single coworker I've ever had, of telling them that there is an out, there is something else that you can do, and have the flexibility. So that is kind of how I kind of got enrolled in the program and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I love so much in what you just shared. And I think like one of the things that drives me absolutely insane, and I see it constantly on TikTok specifically lately, where teachers are always, I'm seeing them in comments of posts about leaving teaching and things like that, where they're like, but what else could I possibly do? I don't have any skills outside of teaching. I don't have anything that translates to anything else. I don't want to do tutoring. I don't want to do these things that, I don't want to go get my master's degree just to make more. I don't want to, go through the admin path and leadership and principal and all of
Hmm.
those things. And I'm like, we're right here. Like, this is literally the perfect thing for you. And obviously, it's not right for every single teacher. For you
Yeah.
specifically, it like clicked for you because you had just sleep trained your daughter. You were already obsessed with this world. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I could actually get paid to do this. And that is insane, right? So I think that is something that's just like going to speak to so many teachers who hear this where they're like, oh yeah, I've done that. I've done the chat GPT thing. I've done the,
Hmm.
thought about tutoring. I've thought about all of these other things and none of it makes sense. And then you find the thing that does make sense and
Yeah.
it all clicks, right?
Yeah.
So I love that your husband was able to get all of his questions answered. That is such a common thing where husbands are like, wait, you seem to be like set on this, but I don't really get it. And I don't understand how this is going to actually work.
Hmm.
So I love that he was
Yeah.
able to get all of that handled with Michelle. So were you
Yeah.
having any hesitations? I know he was, but whenever you were thinking about all of it and, finalizing that decision, were you having
I had like so much stirring in me and I was so desperate to take the leap. It felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff and like I knew that this beautiful thing was out here, but like my whole identity was a teacher. Like I wasn't just like this like bump on a log teacher. Like I won teacher of the year for my entire district of over 900 teachers. Like I was in the running for teacher of the year for the state of Indiana. Like I lived, ate, and breathed teaching. So it's like who I was. So it felt like this whole identity crisis of like rediscovering myself of like just me and me as a mom and things like that. And so it was scary to like make that leap, but at the same time I like had this just gut feeling that I could make it. I had the skills, so many of the skills that you need to run your own business and to be a sleep consultant working with parents are so many of the things that we already have as teachers. Like teachers are some of the most creative people that there are, and it's been so fun like rediscovering that creativity of like posts I can do, or like I'm baking cookies, dropping off to pediatricians as like to get their referrals. Like I'm having so much fun of like building my website and picking my colors and my logos and things like that. Like it is so fun to me to be able to create something that I'm so proud of. So I'm using my creativity. I'm using the skills that I have of paying so close attention to children. Like my sister used to always say that in a sea of weeds, I would find a four-leaf clover. And she related that in her maid of honor speech to me as a role in a teacher. Like I would have a sea of children in my classroom and I would discover the tiny little learning disability in a child, and I would have those hard conversations with parents and get that kid back on track. Like those are the things that fuel me. And so being able to be brought with a child, being able to be brought a child who is really struggling and their sleep is impacting, their emotional regulation, their development, their parents' marriage, the overall peace in their home. Like when you're tired, everything falls apart. Like I remember being groggy and not being able to think straight at work and on a day that she's teething or sleep regression, and being like, this isn't sustainable. Like how are these people struggling with sleep until their child's like 3 years old? My kid was like a couple months old and I was like hardly functioning. My husband and I, like we're more snippy with each other because we're tired. I hear of families that the husband is sleeping on the couch so that he doesn't hear, all these things of like your home can fall apart when people are tired. And so having that fuel of like knowing you're making that big impact is still being fulfilled for me. I'm used to having conversations with parents because that's what I do as a teacher, the phone calls. I'm used to writing plans. They were lesson plans, now they're sleep plans, but it translates. The science of sleep is not hard to learn. Like even if you're not a parent and you know nothing about babies or trying to get them to sleep, it's not hard to learn, that whole realm. So even if you're not a parent, it is still absolutely doable. So I just felt, all of those parts that I had found strengths in myself in sleep consulting. And so it wasn't really scary for me because I had a semblance of same, but more flexibility, more freedom, and all those things, and getting to be able to be with my daughter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So finding the pieces of sleep consulting that felt so familiar from
Yeah.
what you were already doing and teaching and being able to cling to that as like, this isn't a huge transition. And
Mm-mm.
yes, it's scary because doing anything new is scary, regardless of what it is, regardless of whether there's an investment involved or anything like that. And so, of course, there's still that, but being able to see how this would translate to the skills that you already had, I think probably helped make that less scary. So that
Yes.
makes total sense. And I want to talk about the decision that you have made to not go back to the classroom at the beginning of next school year. And I think that that is amazing. Obviously, super excited for you. I am stoked. You sent me a video last week that literally made me cry of you telling your daughter, "This is the last time I'm leaving you. You and I are going to be together from now on." I was sitting here at my desk and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." And so I think that it is the coolest thing ever. And I also think that not everybody would make that decision before they already had proof that it was going to work. And you made that decision not yet knowing, like, for sure this is going to work. And you may know in your brain, you may know in your heart it's going to work. And I believe that for you as
Yeah.
well. But you don't have the proof yet, right? And you made that
Mm-hmm.
decision before you had your first paying client, which we'll talk
Yeah.
about in a minute. But I
Yes.
would love to hear from you, like, what did that decision look like? And what gave you the confidence that this was going to work and that it was the right decision to go ahead and leave?
Yeah, this is something that my husband and I talked a lot about, of just how it was affecting my health, and we just kind of had this like motto that like it's just going to work and we're going to fight hard until it does. And I can't, with it being teaching, I felt like me going back was me committing to a whole year. I felt like I couldn't take a few months and like wait and see and get it off the ground, and then leave my classroom set up, leave my students in the middle of the year. My school have to find a new sub, for my students, which is totally fine. Like teachers leave the classroom mid-year all the time, but I just was like, you know what? I'm just done. I don't want to go back. I don't want to have to reset up my classroom. I don't want to have all of the summer trainings and the back to school nights and everything. Like, I just want to be done. Like, I want a clean break. I want to leave at the end of the school year and not come back. I just want to be done. And I also had the confidence from the program of, I mean, you're not just teaching us how to get a baby to sleep, like you're walking us through how to write the plans, walking us through, giving us the experience of working with parents, which I call my student teaching, our volunteer clients. I've told everybody I'm in my student teaching of sleep consulting right now. Like, I'm working with my volunteers. Like all that I learned from the actual business side, like I have so much confidence that it will work, that I was able to walk away before I had any proof. Like I walked away before I earned a dollar. So, but I know that I'm going to, and so I have that confidence. My husband always tells people, when people are like, "What's Courtney doing?" He's like, "It's such a niche, but it's not." Because literally anytime you meet somebody who has a child, you're like, "Oh, how old are they? How are they sleeping?" Like like my husband, we were like, these are little god winks of like, when we were starting to think about this, we were starting to pick up on how many people were asking us how our daughter was sleeping. And like, they didn't even know I was like thinking about sleep consulting. It's one of the first things that you say. How are they eating? How are they sleeping?
Mhm.
I was seeing posts on Facebook of these moms being like, "I'm struggling with my kids' sleep. Can anybody help?" And so my husband was starting to see that too. And he's like, everyone is struggling. Like, there is never going to be a shortage of parents who are struggling with their child's sleep. It's everyone. But there's not sleep consultants walking around everywhere, so, or people like me who didn't even know it existed. Like, I'm so thankful that my mom was like, "Hey, we sleep trained you guys. Like, why don't you read this book and I can help you." But if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have even known what to do. There's no education for new parents. Like, I had no idea. We brought our daughter home from the hospital. put her in a crib in her own room with a blanket on. No one told me any safe sleep. And I woke up one night with my like 3-day-old baby completely under a blanket. I had no idea you weren't supposed to put a blanket on her. I just thought she was cold. So I'm like, why? It's so important for parents to learn safe sleep guidelines for their babies, to have any idea, of what sleep is going to look like. It's such a big, important part. People get lactation consultants and people take newborn classes, and none of it covers sleep. And so someone is always going to need a sleep consultant. And so my whole, mantra is just tell people it exists.
Yeah.
And they're going to know a friend who's struggling, who's going to know a friend who's struggling, who's going to know a friend who's struggling. And I'm never going to run out of clients. It's just about getting my name out there, and for people to understand that there is hope and you don't have to live tired.
Yeah, 100%. I was the exact same way. So I understand, but not everybody has that confidence and has that just
Yeah.
internal knowing of like, it's going to work. It doesn't matter. It's going to work. And also, and Michelle and I have actually had this conversation before as well. I almost think that it is so much easier to build a successful business when there's no other option. When you don't have that career to fall back on, when you don't have that paycheck to fall back on, to say like, oh well, it's okay if I don't do as much in my business today or this week or whatever, because I still am going to get paid from my teaching job, or I'm still going to get paid from my corporate job, whatever. I think it's so much easier to succeed when there's no other option. You're like, it has to succeed. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
This is my income now, and it has to succeed. And so I think that a lot of people go into things like this thinking, I need to prove it first, and then I'll know that it works, and then I can make the decision to leave, which is fine. A lot of people need to do that, and that's totally fine. But I also think that sometimes we have to challenge ourselves to take a bigger risk and know, like, I'm going to make it work no matter what.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
super cool that you did that. And you also did, I know from our conversations, you also did the smart work of doing the calculations and figuring out, what do I actually need to earn for us to be able to like be okay and be comfortable. And you recognize, okay, that number is actually lower than I thought. And so it is super realistic that even if things are a little bit slow in the beginning, I'm going to be able to make ends meet, and it's not going to be disastrous.
Yeah.
So that's super important as well, to be able to have real data and that real information as you're going into that process.
Yeah. And it seems so simple. Like after we did the math, what we're saving, I mean, daycares are like $2,000 a month now. Like that's half my salary. So what we were saving from not paying for daycare, I only have to meet like 3 clients a month. Like that's like nothing. So my husband and I are like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get my life back, and I can do so much more than 3 clients. And so he and I both have that confidence of, I think I'm going to end up making a lot more money than I did as a teacher, but I get to be home. I get to go to my 12 o'clock workout class. I get to meet my friends for lunch because I'm on my own schedule. I have these windows where I'm writing sleep plans for people, and I'm doing my calls and things like that, but I can schedule those on my own time. And I can have little pockets of time where I'm writing a sleep plan in a coffee shop, and I can take a sick day, and I can, like all of these things, I can choose my own timing, which is such a blessing. So yeah, I'm going to make it work, and it's going to end up being better than I think what we could have imagined it to be. So
Yeah, I agree. And I would love to give you the opportunity to share what happened this week that has basically proven to you that it's going to work. So if you want to share what you shared with me a couple of days ago, that would be awesome.
yes. So I am just at the tail end of my coursework. It took me a little bit longer just because I had some life things. We moved houses, packing up our house, moving to a new house. We were at my in-laws in between our 2 houses with our new house being built. I lost my grandpa, like all of these things, just life was happening. So it took me a little bit longer. I finished my coursework in like 8 weeks, 6 weeks. And then finished my first couple clients and then had to take a little pause. But so I'm just finishing up my final couple forms before I officially graduate. But I have booked my first paying client before I have even officially graduated. So it happened so quickly. I saw a woman from Texas post about how she was having trouble getting her son to sleep. I responded to her and I was like, hey, I think I could really help you. Like, I asked her a couple questions. She booked a call with me for that night. And within 5 minutes after our call, I heard a little ching sound on my phone. And I was like, I think she just booked with me. And my husband and I just started like jumping up on the bed, like holding hands and screaming, like acting like total kids because we're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna work. Like, and I have these people, like, when I put out a feeler for trying to get my volunteers, because we work with 5 volunteers, I had 34 people that were interested. And so now I'm going back and I'm reaching out to all of those people who I could only pick 5 for my volunteers, and I'm saying, hey, I can offer you a discount. And so many of them are like chomping at the bit to be like, when can we start? When can we start? So it feels so good to have that confidence and reassurance of like, I thought it was going to work, but now I'm like at the point where I'm like, okay, I see the fruits of all my labor and it's going to work.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. You sent me that message and I saw it yesterday morning and I was so excited for you. And you sent me a message back. You were like, we were literally jumping on the bed. And I said, I literally just got out of my chair and jumped up and down for you as well.
Yes.
So exciting and just the best feeling ever to like see it pay off and see it pay off so quickly. It's amazing. So I love that for you and I'm so excited for you. Like you said, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to come from here. But I think like that whole time frame, if you sit and think about it, is absolutely insane. You left your classroom for the last time last week and then
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how many days, 4 or 5 days later, first client. Like it could not work out more perfectly than that. And
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you.
And I still get paid throughout the summer. My contract ends to the summer. So I'm taking this time where I'm still getting paid from school, but I'm building my business, getting it ready until my paychecks stop in August and I'll be smooth sailing. So,
So exciting. That's amazing.
yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So you touched on this a little bit a second ago, but I want to dive a little bit more into this because I know that this is something that stresses a lot of people out whenever they think about doing this, whether they are, working in corporate or in the classroom or whatever else, or just, a lot of times it's stay-at-home moms that are like, how am I going to fit this into my crazy life? So you did our program, like you said, during one of the absolute craziest times of your life, moving, so much going on in your personal life. What did it look like day to day whenever you were first starting out and you were going through the coursework? I think that people would really benefit from hearing, like, how did you actually fit it in while you were still working full time and had so much else going on?
Yeah, my husband and I were like, we're just gonna head down grind, of like, I'm putting in all the work now. I'm gonna push through for the later benefits. So usually my day would be I would wake up, I would nurse my baby, my husband would take her to daycare. I would be at work all day. Any time that I could find a pocket, like during my lunch hour or during my prep, if I didn't have a whole lot to do, listening to the modules. I would listen. I had the app downloaded on my phone. I would listen to our coursework while I was driving to work, and I'd get there and write down all the notes, that I wanted to have. I would get home from work. I'd have my baby's 1 wake window. So I was all in, like locked in with her. And the moment I put her to bed, we would do a 10-second tidy of the house, and then I would sit down and I would do my coursework. And usually I would stay up for just about an hour a night, and that track got me to finish my coursework in about 5 to 6 weeks. So I could have finished this program it's May right now. I could have finished in like March if I didn't have so much life going on. So it could be way quicker than what my circumstances were, but it's just was life for me. But yeah, so I just found a way to squeeze it in. If she was taking naps on the weekends, I'd have little pockets of 2 hours here, 2 hours there as she was sleeping, because she was sleeping, so that I was able to get it done. So, and then the volunteers were easy. I wrote my sleep plans on Saturdays. I'd schedule my call with them, and then I was just checking in with them in the mornings to see how the night went, around bedtime, and little things here and there throughout the day to see how naps were going. But it was really manageable.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I think that's something that a lot of people think it's going to be a lot more difficult than it ends up being. And especially whenever you really enjoy what you're learning and it's exciting and it's engaging and you're not, bored by the material
Yeah.
because it's actually like, oh, I never thought about that way, or oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now. And so there's things all throughout that are like these really big aha moments. And then you're going through and submitting the coursework about what you just learned. And so it's just constantly engaging you to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, like you said, the fact that it's in an app, you can access it whenever you need to. It's not something that you have to show up to a live call every single day or every single week at a specific time.
Yeah.
I think that helps a lot as well.
And one of the things that Michelle said to me that kind of sold me on it, I was like, I have to do homework. Like, I'm back in school. Every assignment that I did throughout my time at Cradle Coach, I use now. Like, one of our assignments is like talking through the regressions, and that is language that I now use my own work from my course that I put in my sleep plans now of like, hey, your kid's around 4 months old. Here's what we can expect to see. That's from my homework. Or, like when I was in the second module or the second phase, one of our homework assignments is to like develop our packages. So you're building our business kind of for us as we're going, giving us that step by steps. You're not just like, hey, here's how to get a baby to sleep. See ya.
Yeah.
Like my business was like almost all the way built by the time I was graduating because we're doing it throughout the course slowly but surely. So it wasn't this big overwhelming, like, how do I start a business? Because you were walking us through it step by step, and we're using our own words from our homework assignments to now plug into our website, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. And it's strategic that way, right? Like
Yes.
we want it to make sense. And also I think about it from the perspective of like if we're just going through a module and watching it and we're, getting those aha moments in our head and we're like, "Oh, that makes sense. I like that." And then we're moving on to the next one. We're only going to retain so much information from that even if it was so
Yeah.
great while we were going through it. But then having to sit down and reinforce what we just learned with that coursework, that's also intentional because we're having you then really solidify that information in a real way, not just like hypothetical and not just hearing it and then it goes in one ear and out the other. So,
Yeah, which as a former teacher, chef's kiss, because that's exactly how learning should happen and take place of, it being applicable to life and having assignments that are meaningful and not just busy work. So,
yes, yes. Or not just teaching to a standard for state testing.
yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So I want to talk about family support because this is something that I see time and time again, not just from a perspective of, well, a lot from a perspective of women who are thinking about doing this, but they don't have the support of their spouse or they don't have the support of their family, or their family thinks they're insane for leaving something comfortable, or their family thinks they're insane for doing, something that they don't understand. And a lot of times that holds people back from even starting because they don't have the support of their family or their spouse, or they'll actually start doing it and then they don't have the support as they're trying to take time away from whatever they would normally be doing to do their coursework. So I would love to hear from you because I know that you have a ton of support. So I would love to hear from you what that's looked like for you and how much having that support has meant to you being able to get through this process effectively, and what that's kind of like looked at through or looked like throughout this process for you.
Yeah. So I think my family support has come from them walking through my brokenness with me, of them seeing the postpartum depression come on as I was having to give my baby up for a daycare daily. Like they saw me break when I went back to work. I could not stop crying, or I became like this, like clingy to her. Like I didn't want anybody to hold her because I soaked up every moment that I had because I had to be away from her all the time. Like, they just saw me shift, and the light just went out from me when I went back to work. And so it was really hard for them to watch me go through that. And so they were super supportive of doing anything and everything they could to get me back to who I am, you know, helping me find an out. And so they were asking anybody and anyone of what job opportunities there can be or what teachers can do. And I found this and I brought it to them. And of course, my mom was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I'll do that with you when I retire. Because people at church used to come stay at our house for the weekend, and my mom would help them sleep train their baby. Like before sleep training or sleep consulting was a thing, my mom was doing it. So she was like, yes, this is it. My husband at first was like, what are we doing? But after he sat down with Michelle and got all his questions answered, he was wonderful. And he was like, whatever you need to help you be happy is what I'm here for. So, and then my siblings, my dad, my in-laws have been wonderful. They loaned us half of the payment for the program. My grandma loaned us the other half. Everybody just was like, what can we do to get you out? What can we do to get you home with Emmy? And so it was so wonderful. And then I just had my last day of school a couple weeks ago, or last week, and I thought I was going to my sister's surprise birthday dinner because it was her birthday on the 21st. And I walked in and there's this big banner that says Courtney's next chapter. And the whole place is decorated with children's books. And they threw me a teacher retirement party, which is so, so sweet. So they just are really excited for me. They're all carrying business cards in their purses and wallets, and they're just kind of my champions. And they're like, it's word of mouth. Everybody's tired. They just need to know it exists. So it's just been so special to feel so seen throughout this and supported, even though it does seem like a crazy jump. It really isn't. So
Yeah, totally. I have had chills the entire time we've been talking, I swear. Yeah, whenever you sent me that video last week of your retirement party, I was like, oh my gosh, this family is incredible. And
thank
it's
you.
so sad that not everybody has that. And I know that not everybody will have that, but I would love to hear what you would say to somebody whose family isn't on board yet, whether that is their spouse who's like, no, you're crazy. We're not spending this money on this, or like, no, you can't leave your job, or, just family in general that are not supportive of this. What would you say to them as they're navigating through that?
Yeah, I would encourage them to, like, as they're interacting with families, ask a question to families of, how's your child sleeping? Because you don't realize how people are struggling because parents often suffer in silence of they're tired and you don't know it. You don't get to see what happens in a home when you're not there. And so that's really what sold my husband, and of understanding how many people need help. The payment plans that Cradle Coach offers really make it attainable, just doing the monthly payments. And then seeing stories like me, I'd encourage them to listen to the podcast, look on the website, because you have so much information of success stories of like Yusra, she graduated a couple months before me and is already like making double what I made as a teacher. And things like that just like give you hope of like, oh my gosh, like this wasn't just someone random on Instagram. Like, I was in calls with her. Like, I know she's real, she exists, and she's making double what teachers make, like in her first couple months of like, I think that just bringing proof that's real to your family's attention, getting them to understand like how much this role is needed for so many families, and then walking them through like what our coursework actually entails, of like how in-depth it is, of like, we talk about breastfeeding, we talk about nutrition, we talk about sales and all these things. Like it is so in-depth that it made it feel so much more real to my family, who my mom was on board. My husband was a little skeptical at first. My siblings are like, what in the world? Because I'm pretty ADD. I tend to be impulsive. And so they're like, is this just like you just finding something to get you out? And I was like, it started that way. I'm really geeked out on science of sleep, but like look at this. Like, this is real. This is an actual thing, and this is going to work. And it took just a quick peruse of the website, a couple podcasts, a couple calls, just that call with Michelle. And then everybody was like, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, love that. Love all of that advice. It is so perfect. And I also think like one other thing that I would add is that, like you did with Michelle, we're always happy to chat, not just with
Mm-hmm.
the person who is thinking about enrolling, but like your husband joins the call as well. We're always happy to do that because we're real people. Like we went through the same kind
Yeah.
of things whenever we were thinking about becoming a sleep consultant, and we completely get it. We get the skepticism, we get the, is this real? And we live in this insane AI world right now where there's so much made up crap on the internet that, like, I literally have students that come to me and they're like, I almost enrolled in a program and then realized there was no real instructor. It's all just AI generated. And I'm like, oh, that is insane. So
Yeah.
we are real people. We are happy to chat with y'all. We are happy to talk through things. I know that you're happy to talk to people who are thinking about it,
Absolutely.
because it's so important to talk to somebody who's actually done it versus just like, reading a website or watching some videos, but actually talking to somebody who's been through it can make all of the difference for those skeptical people in your life who are like, not quite sure that this is going to work. So
Yeah.
super important to explore all of the avenues and make sure that you're getting the right information to that person so that they can feel more confident and help support them on this journey. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Awesome. So to wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about this next year. So we know you're not going back to the classroom. Super exciting, super
Whoop, whoop.
amazing. I cannot wait to see what this next year holds for you. You already have your first paying client. So it's like we're checking off these boxes of getting all of these first things done. So what do you envision this next 6 months to a year looking like for you? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What do you picture it looking like?
Yeah, so right now I'm focused on getting my name out there, especially how I mentioned of, still having my teacher income just for a little bit longer. I'm kind of giving this time to myself as a grace period of just blasting my name everywhere. So, I'm going to pediatricians' offices, dropping off pop buys to pediatric dentists, to anybody. I'm blowing up Facebook group messages. I want to be the sleep lady in the Facebook group messages for moms, just trying to get people aware that I'm here, that I'm accepting clients, checking back in with them to see, like, maybe they weren't ready like a couple months ago, but struggling for a couple more months. Maybe they're like, okay, I'm at my wit's end. Like, we got to do this. So I'm just trying to like get my name out there. I have the goal of writing some plans, some survival guides for kind of a passive income, which you help us do as well with regressions and sleep. But I'm coming out with a travel survival guide, and that has opened up this whole realm for me of working with a company. I've already recorded another podcast with a company that has 400,000 followers, and they want to collaborate on a post with me. So that opened up a whole like oyster shell for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is something that could help for sure. We have a big baby conference in September in Indy where it's only like $250 for a booth for 3 days. And all of these parents, we've had like a million families come through. So I'm going to print some of those physical guides that I'm making now, print them and sell them, and also my services at that baby conference coming up this fall. So that'll hopefully get my name out there quite a bit. So I'm doing that. I'm trying to, because I'm a teacher, like teaching is my jam. So I'm like, why not make some online courses? That's some work now that I can do that'll be fruitful for the future. So I'm working on right now a course for expecting parents because I don't want anybody to put a blanket over their newborn baby like I did. So that's something that should never happen, So giving parents just that confidence of like, how do you survive the newborn trenches? We're not sleep training a newborn, but making sure that they're in a safe environment, understanding sleep, understanding when to pay attention of when their internal clocks are developing and maturing, and when we need to start getting good healthy habits in place so that we won't hopefully have to get to the point of those horrible sleepless nights when your child's 8 months old. So So those are some things I'm working on, just slowly starting to scale and get myself out there, trying to get some passive income going on for families who might not be in a place where they can afford to do a whole one-on-one support or might not need that. Sometimes the small fixes are just what a family needs, but I want to be kind of what anybody needs. I want to be the small fix. I want to be the total overhaul. I just want to be able to help as many people as I can and support my family the best I can, but also be fully present at home here with my daughter while I do that.
Love that. Amazing. Love all of your goals, everything that you're already putting in place. It's incredible. And I know that it's going to be everything that you want it to be. So I cannot wait to watch and see what happens. So
Thank you.
yes, yeah, I cannot like I am so excited for you because I can tell that you are going to do what you need to do. Like I can tell that you're already putting in the work. You're already thinking so strategically when most people at this point are just like kind of, I'm hoping that people are going to come to me. I'm hoping that clients are naturally going to find me. And you are like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I am putting myself out there. I'm doing all of the things that I can possibly think of. Plus, I'm already thinking about next steps of scaling and passive income and all of these things that a lot of people aren't doing like until they've been doing this for a year or two. And so
Yeah,
with it. I'm so excited. It's going to
thanks.
be amazing. So, what would you say to the teacher who is, let's say, sitting in her car right now in the school parking lot, thinking about not wanting to go into that classroom again, but not knowing what else is out there for her? Or the teacher who just ended the school year, she is taking this summer to recover from the school year and already dreading the start of the next school year. What would you say to them? And what do you think they need to hear right now?
I think that they just need to hear that there is hope and it doesn't have to be this way. I didn't think that there was an out. I thought I had this feeling of feeling trapped because I knew that the best I could do was a different job or a different school, a different grade level. And I tried that. I moved schools, I moved districts, I moved grade levels. I taught kindergarten, I taught third grade. I tried all the things and nothing was fixing that inner feeling. And so the amount of freedom that I have, like I'm putting on makeup again. Like I didn't put on makeup in years because I would sleep to the last second because I had to drag myself to school. And now I wake up when I'm ready to have my daughter with me, or my mom has her, one day a week so that I can just grind for my business on that day. But just that there's an out. And as I was leaving my classroom, I texted my husband, like I was spam texting him. And it was like rushing over me, like all of the things that I don't have to do anymore. And I told him, I said, no more hearing my name 100 times a day. No more having to say, yes, you may go to the bathroom. No, you need to raise your hand. Like, I don't have any more. I don't have to pack my lunch. I don't have to sit through meetings. I don't have surprise observations 4 days after you come back from maternity leave. I don't have to ask for permission from anyone. I don't have parents calling me about their child's behavior, accusing me of being wrong about it. Like, I don't have to write grades anymore. I don't have to grade papers. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. I'm nobody's boss. Like, I don't have any more team dynamics of trying to eat with your team but being worried, that you have stuff to do, but what if they're going to be mad if I'm not eating with them? Like, actual teacher caddy drama, I don't have any of that anymore. Like, I get to eat on my couch with my daughter, and I get to just have that freedom, so it is attainable and you don't have to suffer anymore. And I would say, just like my family said to me, I would say, run it, do it, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm so excited for you. And I also think one thing just to add is you don't have to do something that you're doing just to make money. You can do
Yeah.
something that still is so meaningful and that you're going to feel so good about. Like, if you could just really quickly talk about some of the experiences that you had during the volunteer process where families literally had their lives changed by you.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
moments that you had where you were just like, this is incredible that I get to do this.
Yeah, I had one that I met her at like a breastfeeding support group. She had been struggling with her daughter waking up several times a night. She was still swaddled at 7 months old, all of these things. And that mom was so anxious and worried that it wouldn't work. She's like, but have you ever had a kid that just doesn't fall asleep? Like, what if she just never falls asleep? And I was like, I promise you, she will fall asleep, you know? It took her 2 nights. The first night, she was checking in on her for about 25 minutes before she fell asleep for the first time independently on her own ever. We dropped the swaddle. She was able to just put her in bed and go about her evening, kiss her goodnight. By night two, she slept through the night. So she literally was like, I didn't know that this was possible. Like, I thought maybe it works for other kids, but not my baby. And she was like, 2 nights. She was like, I would have suffered like this for months and years because she didn't know how to wean her off of being nursed to sleep every night, or she didn't know how to get her out of the swaddle. So small fixes are easy changes. And she's like, this like totally transformed our lives. I had another client that he was waking up 8 times a night. He could only nap for 20 minutes at a time. We got him totally to the point where they kept one wake up for mom's nursing so that she could nurse and not be engorged. So they were so happy, even just having one night waking, and I gave her the instructions on how to wean that once she's ready. I had another one that their child is 16 months old. Mom and dad are sleeping in separate bedrooms because he gets more rattled when he sees mom in the middle of the night from that emotional connection of breastfeeding. But that's what they had been doing. Dad would co-sleep with him because mom was the breadwinner and needed rest for work. And we got him in his own bed, sleeping by himself, falling asleep within 5 minutes on like night 3, when it took him like hours to fall asleep by himself. Like, we just tweaked his daytime schedule. We supported him with hands-on, loving support, teaching him independent sleep, and mom and dad are back in the same bedroom together. Like, they get their evenings together because he would go to bed with him at 7 and he'd just have to lay there. And I'm like, having that gift, being able to give somebody that gift of togetherness back in your marriage is pivotal. Like, he had been having some speech delays from his lack of sleep, and he is thriving now. Of like, sleep isn't like you always say, it's not a necessity, or sorry, sleep isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. Like, you need sleep in order for your body to heal, in order for your development, in order for your emotional regulation. Like, all of these things can be helped so much when you get your baby sleeping. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been pretty powerful to see and what gifts we're able to give people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think, like, for teachers specifically, teachers are incredible, and a lot of them are like some of the most selfless people in the world who genuinely want other families to thrive. And this is just another way to do it. And you
Yeah,
don't have to leave that behind. You don't have to leave that desire to help people behind. You can just put it into practice in a different way. And
absolutely.
it's amazing to be able to do that
Yeah,
and do it on your own schedule with your kids home, with your, flexibility that you get with this work.
yeah, yeah. So thank you for giving me that gift.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited for you. Okay, awesome. Well, can you share how people can find you? Because I want to make sure that those who are listening can find you on Instagram, your website, things like that.
Yes, absolutely. So my company is called Everrest Sleep Co., EVERREST, sleepco.com. That's my website. My Instagram is just at Everrest Sleep Co. Not on the old TikTok yet, but hopefully down the road. But yeah, I would be so, so happy to talk to anybody that is skeptical, or even if you just need to vent about how much you hate your job. Like, I understand the empty feeling. So I would be so happy to help you. So Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll put all of the info in the show notes as well so they can easily click on it and find you. But again, I so appreciate you doing this. I know that so many are going to benefit from being able to hear your story and hear everything that you have gone through over the last several months because it's incredible. And again, I just can't wait to continue to see you grow and to see what happens over the next several months and year.
wonderful. Thank you.